Well, hello everybody. It's Joel Hunter here, Dr. Joel Hunter, teaching for Truckee Meadows Community College, Philosophy 135, Intro to Ethics. And today, I've got a very bright light in my face. I'm going to see if I can turn just a bit here. Let's go another way, like so. Oh, that's a little better. So, what I'm going to do is an autopsy of your first not your first exam, but I'm going to do an autopsy of your quizzes leading up to the second exam. So let's talk about what's going on. Now, it's been a while since I've been here, and I see very few of you actually have been able to show up for this one. I don't blame you. But it's been a while since we've done this, and the reason is because you guys have been killing it on the quizzes, and you really haven't needed me to go through the material because you all are grasping it. So I'm glad for that. It's worked out for both of us as a result of that. And what I want to do today, though, is go over some of the previous quizzes so that you can look at the hardest problems, or the problems I should say that gave you the most difficulty, and that will prepare you for the exam because those questions are going to be on the exam. And I want to make sure that you are ready to kill the exam as well as you've been killing the quizzes. So let me see if there was any other introductory stuff I wanted to say. So yeah, if you have questions, and you're live, you can always chime in anytime. Do feel free to do that. Just let me know your name so that I can respond to you with your name. And then yeah, so let's get to it. And I'm going to be kind of looking down this way over here, because I have some notes over here. And let's talk about a couple things leading up to the quiz. Let me see if stand by please. Okay, we're connected. There we are. And are we going? Hang on just a second. Let me get the presentation going. Okay, great. I'm back. I see that, let me make sure this is working now. Yes, okay, we're good. All right, so this exam is going to be a little bit shorter than the first exam, and there's a couple other little differences that I'll mention. So there's 35 questions total. 32 of them are drawn directly from your previous quizzes, your 3 previous quizzes. And so they're the multiple choice, the true, false, the multiple answer. Those are the types of questions you should expect, just like you've seen already. There are 3 additional questions that are, I would call them comparative questions. They're bigger questions. And what they're doing is they're asking you to respond to a kind of question and pick one of the normative theory, one of the normative ethical theories that we've been reading in this unit. And so what you want to do then is choose from consequentialism, from Kantian ethics, also called deontological ethics, and contractarianism, or social contractarianism. Those are your 3 normative theories that we've been looking at. And so what you have is 3 questions that are asking you to pick. Now, if you remember from exam 1, we did 5 questions that asked you to give in your own words what the value theories were. Now, I'm not doing that this time. Instead, I'm giving you another kind of multiple choice question. It seemed to fit better with that rather than having you write the short answer. Okay, so this is a shorter exam than the previous one. It counts the same amount. It's weighed the same amount as the first exam. So let's see. I think that's all I wanted to say about the content of the exam. And let's move on then and just describe what those are. So consequentialism is chapters 9 through 10. Excuse me while I get adjusted here. And Kantian ethics is 11 through 12. Contractarianism is chapters 13 through 14. So we got 6 chapters total. One note about consequentialism is about 3 or 4 pages in to the first chapter, chapter 9. Your author starts calling consequentialism using the more narrow term, utilitarianism. So for your author, those terms are basically interchangeable, and they are basically interchangeable in the way that I use them on the exam as a result. Utilitarianism comes about because of the principle of utility as a principle for determining good consequences from bad consequences. So it's a more narrow concept, but nevertheless, your author just uses these interchangeably, and that's fine. Okay, so those are our 3 topics that are on the exam, and then just so you associate those with the previous quizzes, you have quizzes 6 through 7 and 8. Wow, am I not talking well today? And those are the topics and their associated quizzes. So you can go back and you can review those quizzes, look at the answers, especially the ones that you missed, and make sure that you understand, where you went wrong, if you got one wrong. I will say one of the common mistakes people make are on the multiple answer questions. So this is where you can pick from one or more of the answer choices. You can select more than one. So one thing that I was noticing is that many people would get the correct answer choices. They would select those, but then they would add on other answer choices that were wrong. And so you just want to be careful of that. You don't want to, like, if 2 of them are right, you don't want to pick all 4 because that does deduct from your score. So just be aware of that. Make sure that you read them carefully, which, by the way, that's another little hint I wanted to, or reminder I wanted to make about this exam and reviewing more than one of these topics. So look back here at quiz 6 and quiz 8. You have 2 theoretical, you have 2 normative theories, okay? Consequentialism and contractarianism. Those begin with the first 3 letters, same 3 letters, C-O-N. So be careful when you read the questions and the answer choices to not confuse them. Make sure they're very, very clearly distinct when you read them. And so you just want to take your time. I've given you 90 minutes on this exam, 90 minutes for 35 questions, plenty of time to read carefully, read it more than once. So I just want to caution you about the possibility of confusing these theoretical terms now that we're grouping them all together in an exam. So just read the questions carefully. Of course, that always goes, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention since I was noticing it too. And in my mind, as I was thinking, oh yeah, contractarianism looks at results. No, it doesn't. It's consequentialism that looks at results. Okay, so now let's look at the percentages. And this is what I was saying earlier, that you all have been killing it on these quizzes, and you've really needed, for most of you at least, have needed very little feedback from me. And so I'm really super stoked that I'm seeing not only a good average at the very beginning there, consequentialism on quiz 6, but you gradually improved through each quiz. And let me tell you, getting a 79% on the Kantian quiz is an achievement, because that was the most philosophically dense theory that we've had so far. Lots of terms that you haven't encountered before. And contractarianism has a little bit of this too, but Kantian ethics in particular, I mean, you've got hypothetical imperatives, categorical imperatives, principle of universalizability, which if you can say it, you ought to get credit for that. The principle of humanity, and on, autonomy and fairness and consent and respect. All of those concepts are involved in Kantian ethics, and it makes it challenging to keep that all sorted out. Okay, so just wanted to give you kudos then on doing so well as a class on the Kantian ethics quiz in particular. And then, of course, this last one, 85% average. Wow, I mean, that's really unheard of. I must be not making these hard enough if you're doing that well. But I'm glad you are, so don't take that the wrong way. All right, so let's start into the autopsies. Let me just check my notes here real quick and make sure that I have covered what I wanted to say. Yeah, I have other notes here that I'm going to get to when we go through some of the specific questions. So let's go ahead and hit this. Now, what I've done in the autopsies is, since the quiz 6 is longer ago, what is that, 5 months ago or something? You are it's probably not as fresh in your memory. And so what I want to do is give you more questions from this quiz that we're giving you difficulties, or giving the majority of the class difficulties, and go through those, and then not as many from the Kant quiz or the contractarian quiz. Part of that is just because you did better on those, but part of it is because it's fresher. You've had those more recently. So let's hit quiz 6 on consequentialism/utilitarianism. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look that way because I had to have my computer monitor over here. I was, kind of rushing to get things together today, and I need to be able to look over here to read the quiz question. So hang on. So the quiz question number, by the way, corresponds to exactly the quiz question that you had. What am I trying to say? The number on the quiz from the original quiz. So if you go back and you look at the answers from the original quiz, you can find it based on these question numbers. So again, I'll make this slide available. Of course, the video you can replay as well, and you can go through the questions to refresh your memory which ones that I've particularly focused on. So just a reminder for what's on the exam. Not only the questions that I've put up here for the autopsy, but also any questions that the class as a whole underperformed on. So in other words, I'm giving you back the hardest questions. And what I've done is I've reworded some of them that I thought would benefit from rewording, and I've mixed up answer choices, maybe changed a couple here and there. But it's basically the same questions from the quizzes. And so you should be able to kill it if you just do a review of those. But you'll also need to review the concepts in the text as well. So do make sure that you have a look at that. Okay, now I'm going to look over here. All right, so consequentialism says that, and then you select the multiple answer choices. So what are your answer choices? An act is morally required if it produces the best overall results. Well, that sounds pretty good because that's talking about results. It's wrong to violate someone's rights. That does not sound like consequentialism, because consequentialism really doesn't say anything at the main level of consequentialism about rights. Rights are more appropriate for talking about Kant and for contractarianism. Okay, so let's put a question mark by that one. And then if multiple actions are open to you, choose the one that is optimific. Okay, so a little bell goes off because you remember, oh yeah, optimific, that was that funny word that was in the consequentialism chapter. So maybe that's one too. So if you have to refresh your memory about what optimific means, do that. But that's what you want to put a little check mark by. Wait a minute, that might be a right answer. Lastly, the central moral virtue is self-interest. Okay, so think back to what were the central moral virtues of the three theories that we've been looking at. And self-interest, if you remember, had to do with which one? Anybody remember? It was contractarianism. That's right. So consequentialism places preeminent value on well-being, not self-interest. Okay, so the correct answers then are the first and the third in this case. All right, number next. So I'm going to look at it this way. Question 3, a consequentialist approach to criminal justice requires that we punish only those criminals who deserve to be punished. Okay, so there's the key idea is for criminal conduct, do we punish those who deserve to be punished? Where is the concept of deserve in consequentialism? The answer is it ain't, at least not at the top level of consequentialism. And so the answer to this one is false. And if you look on pages 149 through 51, there's a discussion there of, I always went blank, on pages 149 to 151, there is a discussion of, this is the drawing it out, let me think for a second. Yes, there's a discussion of why it is sometimes appropriate in consequentialism to punish the innocent. You remember the key concept in consequentialism is that the net overall benefit and net overall happiness is higher than the net overall misery. So that sometimes means that it might be good to punish an innocent. So there is a discussion there of vicarious punishment, exemplary punishment, and how those can be justified under consequentialism. Okay, so it is false to say that the main concern of criminal justice and consequentialism is trying to figure out who deserves to be punished, because in fact consequentialism sometimes punishes the innocent, not the criminal, because of the overall results that you might get from doing that. Pretty ugly. Okay, next, question number 8, another true false. Utilitarianism holds that when choosing among among acts that benefit people, we must choose the one that benefits the greatest number of people. All right. Now, about half the class missed this question. The answer is false. Boy, it sounds like consequentialism, doesn't it? Yes, it does. But your author goes into some detail to clarify why this is called a reductive definition. And it's reductive because it's leaving out something very, very important in order to make it simpler. But in making it simpler, it makes it wrong, as it turns out, because there are counterexamples that you can come up with. All right, so here's the key. Again, I think this is what I just said before. In consequentialism, you want to pay attention to the net happiness. Now, net means, well, let's look at the overall happiness or benefit, and then let's subtract the overall misery or lack of benefit or harm, okay? And so once you do that subtraction, then you have the net. So the net happiness needs to be as high as possible. The net benefit needs to be as high as possible. And so in this case, where we're talking about acts that benefit people, here's an example. And this is kind of like the one your author goes into on those pages. All right, so let's say that the economy does well one year and there is a surplus left over. Now, this has happened before, and sometimes there's like a tax rebate that's given. So let's consider this one, just to compare. Let's say we take the money and we give every citizen a free McDonald's meal. Okay, wow, that is a lot. That's a lot of benefit, right? That's the number of people benefited is huge. But what is the quality of that benefit? What are there other benefits that we might look at? So let's consider then giving, or let's say, well, wow, hey, there's about 100 million people who could be working that aren't working right now. What if we created with the surplus some job programs and we got people involved in some sort of job program or gave them work that benefits the whole society? Kind of like a New Deal thing. Well, that doesn't benefit as many people. But do you see how the net overall benefit could be much higher, especially when you take into account the long-lasting effects? Now, yeah, the total overall benefit to giving everybody a free McDonald's meal, well, that's something. I mean, that's a free meal. That's nothing to sneeze at. But the benefit is so short-lived. I mean, the benefit is going to be less than a day, right? It lasts less than a day. And then the nutritional value of it, well, your mileage may vary. Get a salad. So the question then is, what is the benefit from doing a work program that might benefit fewer people, but the net overall benefit is greater? And certainly the harms seem to be much less than, say, the possible harms of the sort of free meal. And they might be more durable. So this is why this statement of consequentialism, purported statement of consequentialism, is false, because you have to look at the net benefit, not just the total benefit. Okay. Number next, and I think this is a similar one. Yeah, so here we go. This is the one, utilitarianism holds that one must always choose the action that creates the greater amount of happiness. So you got two choices here, two acts, and you choose the one that creates the most happiness. No, that's false as well. Boy, that sounds like consequentialism though. It does, yeah, you're right. But the example your author uses is, okay, so let's talk about classical Rome, and what we want to do is be able to provide some sort of entertainment for the citizens. So we have two plans. Plan one is, hey, let's have some gladiatorial games, have this, violent combat. And people love that stuff, right? And so what we'll do is hold those events throughout all of our venues and Coliseum and so on. Okay, well, we can say, wow, that produces a lot of happiness. In fact, it might be more happiness than any other plan because of the intensity of the interest in it and the number of people who want to turn out for it. Okay, Plan B. Plan B is, hey, let's hold some athletic competitions, say like in the Olympic Games or something like that. Okay, well, let's say that the happiness level for that is a 50 compared to the happiness level of the gladiatorial games at 90. Now, if you just went with this formula, you would say consequentialism says, go for the gladiatorial games. No. Again, net happiness. You have to subtract the misery that is created by the different plans. So what is the misery created? Well, in gladiatorial games, a lot of misery is created. It's violent and so on. You can come up with the answers to those. Not only what it does to the participants in the contest, but what it does to the attendees, and then the overall effect on the social structure. You have to compute those. In consequentialism, you have to take everything into account. Okay. So, and then in the athletic competition, is there misery involved? Probably. I mean, it probably is inconvenient for a lot of people. There might be corruption and things like that. There could be all kinds of reasons that misery is created through Plan B, and it has less happiness. But what's the net overall effect? What is the result of happiness minus misery once you figure that out? It could be that Plan B is better than Plan A, net. And so just because the total amount of happiness might be higher in Plan A, that doesn't make it the one to choose according to consequentialism. It's net happiness. Okay, I think I've drilled that into you now. I've been going on and on about that. All right, so next. According to utilitarianism, if a human being has a mental life no more developed than a non-human animal, then such a human being is not a full member of the moral community. Many of you missed this one, probably around 35-40% of you missed this one, if I recall correctly. And here's the key. There's a chapter. This is, by the way, false. There's a in the chapter, the first chapter, I think it's 9, pages, 131 through 2, there's a discussion about the scope of the moral community. One of the advantages of consequentialism is that it tends to broaden the scope of the moral community, particularly if you take Jeremy Bentham's criterion for who is a legitimate member of the moral community. In other words, who might have claim to rights, whose happiness and misery should be taken into account, right? The question is, well, do they suffer? Can they suffer? Are they disposed to experience suffering? And if the answer is yes, then on Bentham's criterion, they're a member of the moral community. Now notice what that means, is that it means that non-human members, there might be non-human members of the moral community. Do particular animals suffer? Probably, yeah. And so they have to be considered as part of the moral community. And so the answer here then is the mental life of the human being. You think of a mentally handicapped person, somebody with Downs or something like that. They are a full member of the moral community in this view, not because they're necessarily more self-aware than anyone else, not because they're rational, not because they have some external value to the community. It's because they can suffer. Okay? So that's what you need to know for that one, and review the scope of the moral community. to get that one clear. All right, next, and I think this might be the last one from consequentialism. So let's take a look. Which of the following are utilitarian strategies in reply to the argument from injustice? Select all that apply. Okay, so let me read those out to you. Justice must sometimes be sacrificed. Injustice is never optimific. Justice is also intrinsically valuable, and rule consequentialism. Okay, so if you go to pages 151 through 5, you will see that all of these are potential strategies to respond to this concern about injustice. That, and the problem, why is this a problem for consequentialism? Well, if you remember one of the earlier questions we looked at, it had to do with the possibility that consequentialism says the innocent, we might want to hurt them. We might want to punish them as examples or as vicarious, as substitutes, in other words, to produce an overall net benefit, to increase the amount of benefit in the society. Sometimes, or at least it's conceivable, that consequentialism would lead you to those kinds of rather abhorrent conclusions. And so consequentialists, not to be daunted by that, realize that, hey, this could be a problem. So let's figure out, ways, strategies to respond to that concern. And so these are at least 4 of those that are listed in your text. There are more strategies, but these are the 4 that are on the quiz. Okay, so there you go. There is quiz number 6. Quiz 7, Kantian ethics. So let's have a look at this. Again, I said that this was one where the number of terms, the number of concepts you have to wrestle with is much higher than in the others. Okay, so let's look at this. Which of the following statements would Kant reject if you have moral reasons to do action A? Select all that apply. Okay, so in Kant, let's see how to put this in a way that gets to the heart of the matter. So if you have moral reasons to do an action, in other words, it is then a command of reason, a duty that falls upon you as a member of the rational community, right? So if you're a rational being, then there is no escape from doing an action for which there are moral reasons. Moral reasons, okay. There might be prudential reasons for a different kind of action, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So what we're talking then about is categorical imperatives. And in Kant's system, there is no escape. So the reasons that he would say that he would reject the first statement is that you never violate your moral duty. That is exactly what you do not do. If you have moral reasons to do action A, it is your duty to do action A, and so so Kant would reject that first one because those are one and the same thing. Okay, so the ones that he would reject would be these other excuses for why we might not want to do action A. Okay, so you can look at those, and I bet you can probably associate those with the other theories that we've been looking at. So that's a good exercise. So this question, I think a lot of you missed, possibly because you didn't read the question carefully. So be careful when you read this that if something says it's false or it's rejected or words like that, that you're careful about, that you understand, well, what is true then and what is accepted by Kant, okay? All right, so I just want to make sure that's clear. This I think is a reading the question carefully problem, okay? So just have a look at that one, and I've reworded that question for the exam to make it hopefully a little clearer. So don't worry too much about it, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Okay, so I think this is the last one actually for the Kantian ethics. According to Kant, hypothetical imperatives are absolute, never permissibly broken. Okay, so hypothetical and categorical imperatives are two of those woe terms that are in Kantian ethics, and I want to say something about them, hopefully give you a very simple way to understand the difference between them. Okay, so first of all, the first point is both imperative. Now, what's an imperative, first of all? An imperative is a command. So do this, don't do that. All right, so Kant, a big one in Kant, of course, is lying. So he thinks it is a categorical imperative to never lie. Do not lie. So the imperative is the do not or the do. All right, so what about then reason? So reason is what allows you to see, mentally see, morally see what these imperatives are, okay? So these are dictates or commands of reason. And so this is going to be assuming that you are a rational being. All right. So the question here, to separate the hypothetical from the categorical imperative, is to look at what is the goal something you care about. Okay. So one reason that reason tells you to do a particular action is because the outcome of the action is something beneficial to you. That's perfectly rational, right? And here's the key, is that if that outcome is important to me, is something I care about, then it's going to admit of exceptions. There might be times when it doesn't matter that it's important to me or that I care about the outcome. I might have other duties that override that imperative. Okay, so here's the key. Then categorical imperatives do not depend on whether or not I care about the outcome. Hypothetical imperatives do. So categorical imperatives then are they're moral duties that are exceptionless. They're absolute. And so what this question is inviting you to do is confuse hypothetical and categorical. So it is false. Have a look at page 167 and get that sorted out. But let me just review that real quick because that was not the best and clearest presentation. All right, so we're talking about imperatives as commands of reason or moral reasons, and which ones do we have an unfailing duty to keep? That's the question. Those are the categorical imperatives. Well, the categorical imperatives are determined by reason. Hypothetical imperatives are also determined by reason, but the difference is in hypothetical imperatives, I care about the outcome or the goal that I seek. I mean, that's what reason is pushing me to value, right? To hold as valuable. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, unless it conflicts with a higher moral duty, the categorical imperatives. So that's the difference, okay? Hypothetical are important to keep, but they are contingent. They are contingent on not conflicting with more important moral duties, categorical imperatives. Okay. Okay, I hope that was helpful. All right, next quiz. Contractarianism is our most recent one. Again, very few questions I want to go through on this one, but let me touch on those. Just one more reminder, what I said earlier on, it's been a while. Don't confuse consequentialism and contractarianism. In the questions on the exam, I've mixed them up, right? These three theories that we're dealing with. And so you might have a contractarianism question that comes before a consequentialism question. And so just keep those terms in mind. Read it carefully, okay? So let's look at this question here. I think I have three from this quiz that I want to go over with you. All right, which of the following are the purposes of applying the veil of ignorance test? Select all that apply. Now, the veil of ignorance is one of those key concepts from contractarianism, unique to contractarianism. And there were a couple questions on the quiz about it. And this is the one that some of you struggle with, or the majority of you struggle with. So I wanted to touch on it. Okay, so let's look at the answer choices. This is a multiple answer, okay? due to determine the rules of cooperation that will benefit everyone and not just a few. That sounds promising because we are talking about cooperation. We're looking for reasons to get out of the state of nature, if we're looking at Hobbes as a contractarian. And we want to get out of the state of nature because that's the war of all against all. And we want to find, we know that it's rational to cooperate, but we need to find the rules of cooperation that are not just going to benefit, the wealthy or the strongest. They benefit everybody. Okay, so to explain why racial sexual discrimination are sometimes moral, that does not sound like contractarianism. That's conceivable under consequentialism, but that doesn't sound like contractarianism. To explain why rational, self-interested people must be coerced into obeying the moral rules. This is the one that I think most of you slipped up on. And the key word there is coerced. The whole idea of the contract is that it is that you are giving your consent, whether that is explicit consent or tacit consent, to enter into this cooperative society, this cooperative arrangement for society. Okay? And so the whole idea is to avoid coercion. And so I think what happened on this one is a number of you had Hobbes yelling in your ear that, oh yeah, you need somebody like the absolute monarch to force people to be good, to force people to cooperate. And yeah, I mean, in some earlier contractarian views, yeah, that's present. But even Hobbes, we're trying to get past this idea of coercion, of force, or else contractarianism, could be compatible with a mafia-run society, and it's not. So that one is tricky, but if you think through it and you recall some of the key concepts here about the rational basis of cooperation and consent, then you'll be able to figure out that does not belong. And then the last one, to put everyone on an equal footing so that the choices they make are completely fair. Yep, that is right out of contractarianism. So there are your pages, and those are your answer choices. Okay, so next, and I think these are going to be the tacit consent questions. Which of the following are examples of tacit consent to the laws of the state? Select all that apply. Now, if you remember, on tacit consent, this is not something where you're signing a piece of paper. If you enter a contract like that, that's explicit consent. You're signing your name saying, yeah, I agree to do this. And so the thing on this list that is explicit consent is that first one. It is taking oath. If you raise your hand, you swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States. That is explicit consent, not tacit consent. All the others are done, call it passively, simply by choices that you make, behaviors that you conduct. You are showing and giving your consent to cooperate within the society. Okay, so have a look, review tacit consent, pages 211, 212, and we got one last question: is true false on tacit consent. Contractarianism claims that our basic moral duties are those which we have actually consented, those to which we've actually consented, not ones that we would agree to were we all free and rational in seeking terms of mutually beneficial cooperation. Well, I can't blame you if you got this one wrong because it's so long, you probably fell asleep. It's a long question and it's confusing, so you have to break it down. And so the two things to separate there are whether it's actual consent or whether it is tacit consent. Okay, so moral duties, is it limited only to those that we've actually or explicitly consented to, or are ones that we've tacitly consented to? Or in other words, ones that we would consent to were we free and equal and rational? Okay, so the answer to this is false. And page 212, again, this is in that section on that talks about tacit consent. explains that contractarianism is not limited to only those that we've explicitly consented to or actually consented to. And if you think about the previous question, if those are the only rules that we had to live by, the ones that we actually consent to, it'd be a free-for-all, pretty much. Or we'd have some kind of weird contract system, in the nursery, where hey babies, sign here that you want to be part of this society. No, okay, that was silly. Okay, that is the end of your autopsy for the 3 quizzes, and to help you prep for your next exam, which is going to be due. Today's Friday. It's due Wednesday. And if you have any questions other than the ones that we've covered here, and if anything that I've tried to explain here doesn't make sense, then by all means email me. Give me a shout. Hit me up, with a message of some kind, and let me know what you might be struggling with, or if you have any fears or worries about this exam. And good luck. And next week, by the way, we are going to be starting on our applied ethics section. This is the final section of the semester, and this is the fun part, I think, where we're going to be, looking at real-world ethical dilemmas, ethical problems, and trying to apply now all of this theoretical knowledge that we've gained to try to look at what different solutions to those problems would look like. And how then we might evaluate which theory gives us the better answer to the problem. So this is going to be fun. We're going to be doing, I think it's 4 weeks of that, and I've got 4 different ethical problems, real world ethical problems for us to look at and to apply our theoretical knowledge. And looking forward to that. So look for that first of the week, and I'll have that up with your quiz for that. So excellent. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in, if you tuned in. And again, I'm Dr. Joel Hunter, Truckee Meadows Community College. This has been Philosophy 135, Intro to Ethics, your Week 11 Exam 2 prep. I'll see you next time. Bye.